something fishy going on. And you know all he had? He was just simply reading what are called the Ministry, the National Treasury quarter reports. That is all. And he said, the president stood up when he said he's taking the Eurobond. And he said, because he's taking the Eurobond, they're not going to borrow domestically. The estimate at the time was about 300 billion shillings. So 3 billion almost euro a bond that he was taking. But when I look at the quarterly reports from the National Treasury, it seems they still borrow domestically from the local banks. And that's their quarterly report, not the budget, quarterly report. And they are not recording what happened to the Eurobond. So we started asking some questions. Unfortunately, we got the opposition leader, Raila Amolo Odinga at the time, to write a letter to the Treasury to ask where are these Euro bonds? The 2 billion you say you borrowed, what has happened to it? On a bit of a scare for the then Minister of Finance called Rotich, he released documentation. And he showed the following, that $1 billion, they went out into the market, they managed to get $2 billion early 2014. In fact, in May 2014. And $2 billion, they showed us what is called the expenditure pattern of those dollars. So they said, of the first 1 billion, $650 million of that money went to pay a syndicated loan of Mwai Kibaki directly to a bank called Barclays Bank. In fact, Standard Chartered. And they showed us a SWIFT transfer of that amount. The SWIFT transfer is to show, like you get an RTGS that shows from A to point B, it went to the account and was credited. Then they showed us that 350 banks of that first $1 billion, it went directly consolidated fund, exchequer account 00010,03987. Showed us very clearly that account. 300, hallelujah, Sante Sana. Very good work. Then we said, where's the second one? They said, oh, the second one, we hung on to until September of that year. We don't know why they asked JP Morgan Chase to hang on to that. But they said it also came. We said, show us, like you showed us of the 350, show us this amount of 1 billion, how it came to the treasury. Said, because the 350 that came to the treasury, it came to the bank, account number 1, it showed categorically that you had a SWIFT transfer. You even had your letters from CBK addressed to the treasury showing exchange rate confirmation that you transferred to Kenya shillings. Sure, the same for this $1 billion in December. They sent and put up a SWIFT transfer. But that SWIFT transfer did not show us where that money went. Literally blackened out. Apart from the top where you see it at JP Morgan Chase, the rest was completely blackened out. Then they tried to quickly show us an amount in December that was directly from Citibank, what they called tap sales of $815 billion, right? That $815 billion, they showed us the SWIFT transfer. It came to an account they had in the central bank called a sovereign wealth account, some 10,12674 account, not the consolidated fund. We said, And then they showed us the communication from the same central bank saying we have credited this amount with an exchange rate of this value. I said, very good. When you go back to the one of September, where is it? They never ever. We eventually saw in the Auditor General's special audit of the Eurobond done by Edward Awuko. And Edward Awuko in his report says that this amount entered an account called 8,004 something. We said, what account is this? We don't know it. We don't know it at all. What is this account? We never got a further explanation. But nobody dared to present even one iota of that SWIFT transfer like they had done for the others. Even the letter exchanging the amount from dollars to Kenya shillings, central bank saying this is the exchange amount, they didn't show us. What we know is that that money, nobody has provided evidence that it entered this country. Now, the Auditor General in his report further goes to say that all these amounts cannot be attached to not even one project. And actually, even in his conclusion, says that when he asked the Treasury, what were these monies so-called used for? The Treasury says that these funds are fun. In other words, they're interchangeable. They can do what they want with them. In other words, they admit they're breaking the law. That is just one Eurobond of $2 billion. One subsequently took another 5. Please take note. They subsequently took another 7 in syndicated loans. We cannot find anywhere in our budget and in our books. Now, Kenyans, are we going to continually accept that we are going to become slaves and have agreed to become slaves because this is what is called modern slavery now and for generations to come? The perpetuating our poverty and our slavery. In the old days, slavery was something that was done with chains put to our hands and our feet. That is what is happening here with this debt. Debt has now been used by our own oligarchs, our own people in power, and of course, in collaboration with others outside this land. Others outside this land who know what is going on, who know the illegalities of what has been perpetuated, to ensure that we are slaves to them in perpetuity. You can complain about the finance bill today or tomorrow, which are tax raising measures, but we are going down so fast as a nation. The poverty rates are increasing by the day because of one item. Anything that is collected from us is going to others, and it never came to our use. And it's going in such large amounts. It is strangling us, it is finishing us for generations to come. And my proposal has been very clear. What is not in our laws, what does not exist in our constitution, is not to the sovereign. We are not and should not pay. We must cut this chain off our neck. And those who put us in this mess must pay the ultimate price of justice for the people of Kenya because they have caused havoc to our lives. We have said continually that this regime will not change it because it was part and parcel of doing what suffering. They are not going to hang themselves. So William Ruto should not pretend that he can set up a task force to come and watch what he knows he's capable to. He's going to tell us that we will not accept. This is a fraud of monumental proportions. We are unlike other countries that have had to shut down because of debt. Ours we do not have. And I can tell you with all the sums we have paid, my fellow Kenyans, we do not owe anybody. We do not. In fact, if we remove that debt from our books, I can tell you have money in your pockets like you've never seen before. But people are hostage to their own creations. And we must stage now where we say we are not going to be anybody's slaves. Link, and those who are perpetuating it must face justice. And those foreigners who have been part of this, who have been perpetuating, who know what they are doing, demise as a country, we will also follow you. We will look for you. You are criminals. You have aided criminality. In Mozambique, you found. you shall be found even in Kenya. And those who are protecting them, please, we used to have big friends. The West have been good friends of Kenya in the past. Why do you want us to be your slaves? Just we deserve more, and we are not going to take this nonsense anymore. So, my fellow Kenyans, we start with our own. Those who are perpetuating our slavery in something called domestic debt, those culprits, those oligarchs, must be dealt with now. Tomorrow, the day after that, go take your money from those banks. Tell them they are not ready to continue your slavery. Tell those banks that decide they are going to put money in bonds and bills to our detriment, bonds and bills, money that does not enter the consolidated, money that is going to buy bullets to kill our children, that we cannot account for. We are not going to agree anymore. Stop them and tell them that you are going to go and greet them. If perpetuate, but now that they have done it and they are sunk us, take your money back. Tell them you have enterprises and banks that are not perpetuating your slavery. Let us start at home and we shall deal with the rest one after the other. Asanteni sana, Eric.
All right. Oh, oh. My goodness. So you, Jimmy, can you hear me?
Yes, loud there.
So you, what have you done, or what are you doing in your position? Because you are capable, you have the means. What are you doing in position to ensure
Yes.
that just uh, on this economic fraud is given Kenyans? Kenyans right now are running pockets. It
That's
is
correct.
bad.
That's correct. And I can tell you, they will not be able to. As long as we have this monster, they will not. So the first thing is that we must get rid of these people from power. Anybody that has aided and abetted this must get out of power. We must have fresh broom. They must be removed from power because they will never accept to cut off this chain. They were part of creating it. So we must empower. And this revolution, I want to mention, this is the only way the followers of this revolution. And you shall one day receive commendations from a government of this republic. We must exit power. That is number one. Is in courts abroad because there's no point of trying to do it here. We have seen our courts do amazing things that you wonder what law they follow. There are people who are taking up cases in Paris and in London, right, for various aspects of this debt. Human rights lawyers who are doing so their own volition pro bono. But this is not about one or two issues, items. It is not about others saving us. It is not about us, Jimmy Wanjigi. It is about us collecting. It is to our demise to continue this. It must be all of us saying we are not going to agree. We are not going to agree that our children were born to be slaves and their children to be even worse slaves than they were. We must say no. And we must collectively come together and agree that that can only come with a dynamic shift that we are seeing today. This is a moment that is earth-shaking for this republic. We use it and do it properly. We will never be chained. We will see greatness in this nation, and you see us stretch this wave beyond the borders of this land. And you shall see somebody called the Great Kenyan that will be more dominant than you're seeing those Western nations. But we must get rid of this chain. This is our chain. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter which way you move, if you do not remove this chain, we are done. There's no other solution. You can talk about all other things you want to talk, but I can tell you, if you do not remove this chain, we are moving nowhere. And anybody telling you they can perform will not perform if they are not talking about removing this chain. All there is balderdash, it is lies. You this chain, and we do not own it. We do not have it. It is actually illegal. So we are educating, Amarex. We are educating. We've taken 2 years. We spent money doing this forensic audit. We are educating. We keep speaking. When I first started speaking, I remember people saying, but who understands all these figures, all these terminologies? Kenyans are not about the economy. I said, one day, Kenya will be about issue orientation. Issues are going to drive their politics, not tribalism. Issues, their issues, their lives, their collective lives as a great Kenyans is going to drive them. I will keep educating. I will keep informing. And you can write me off all you want, but I'll keep speaking. One day, somebody will hear. Because this pain will not stop. It can only grow. I've given you the figures this financial year, the next financial year, the year after that, and increasing more thereafter. This pain will continue because there's also something else it has set in. There are two twin evils, just to digress a bit in economics. It's called recession and inflation. So at the beginning of the year, everybody was complaining about the high cost of living. Things are very expensive. Then William Ruto says now prices are down. It is so simple in economic terms. When you have inflation, you just tap liquidity. You trap the market, you remove money from the market. So you raise interest rates, your banks are told to bring in more money to central bank. So you remove liquidity. But when you remove liquidity, now everybody says they have no money in their pocket. Things are very bad. Goods are there, they're still high, they have no money in their pocket because you create recession. And you fast-paced recession. Recession was always there. In other words, the growth of a nation. You stop it, you stunt it, you start going down. And the only way to solve that problem when you have those two twin devils is to reduce taxation. So you give leeway. This government cannot reduce taxation because 80% of it is going towards an item called debt. And William Ruto is so afraid because it is even more painful. He's so afraid. He's so afraid of even calling it odious and cutting it off because that means an investor doesn't want to be found and they all don't want to be found. They are so afraid of all the options. So I can tell you, even if today you gave him peace to form his government or a new government or people want to join, I can assure you, you'll be back on the streets. This pain won't stop. They have no solution for your lives. They are wasting your time. In fact, I don't even know why he's still in office. The man should just stand up and say, Mimi nimeshinda, asanteni sana, let us call a general election. Other do this. They have great ideas than I do to solve this problem, or maybe more guts. This has happened to other people in the world. You get to a stage where you cannot solve the problems. I remember in England the other day, in the UK, you had a prime minister, you had 3 prime ministers in 1 year because they could not solve this problem that had been created out of the out of COVID in the UK. They literally print money. And now here you have a situation where, if we are to be honest, and Ruto is to be honest with himself, he cannot solve this problem. No matter what he talks, he cannot solve it because he's too tied in it. Don't waste Kenya's time. There are always other people who can do this. Get out of the way. Exit honorably. Usher us through another general election where now Kenyans are listening to the issue. They're not being cheated by marupurupu and goodies to be given. There's no goodies here. We have a problem to solve because if we solve this problem, our greatness begins. And I say our greatness because it was just interrupted. We were on our way to our greatness, it was interrupted. Our greatness begins. Allow those that the people feel can solve their problem to sit there. You don't have to hang in there. There's nowhere where it says you must have a
Jimmy.
contract of 5 years.
Hang in there, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
I see my co-host Nyakundi is there. And there is a lady here who was talking about Pan-Africanism and IMF and world. Maybe Nyakundi, can you bring her? Can you bring her?
Excuse me. Hello?
Just hold on a minute, Tony. Just a minute.
Tulikuwa taka hawa kubwa wakubwa. Tumegonga wangapi? Tumegonga ngapi? Wote hata Kidiki. Leo rahisi nikekupanda kwa kioski ngekununulia chai.
Yes. Where's that lady? Kadhomi. Kadhomi.
Good evening, Eric and the
Yes,
team.
go on.
Yeah, go on. Thank you so much for having me in this space. Just a bit about myself. I have experience in election observation. And lately in 2022, I was a campaign manager. I worked with Azimio, worked with in the side with Jubilee Party, and I did a lot of work in these elections, and I have a lot to talk about elections in Kenya because it's something I'm into, and I'm also into governance and public administration as a career. So I know you wanted me to talk about elections. I just go through it like real quick about what exactly happens in our Kenyan election. And I would say the only election that was a people's election in 2002, the Kibaki Tosha election. That is the only time that Kenyans were able to get what they voted for. We moved to 2007, where we had the post-election violence, the Kibaki and Raila election. A lot of that election had local manipulation, local players, what people would call, it was a local elite that would manipulate a people's will. That was not a fair election in the country. Even the Electoral Commission then, that was Kivuito then, he died saying that we do not know who won the election. I am saddened because there's no one who has come out to even write a book about the 2007-2008 election, where many Kenyans lost their lives. That was another election that has never been audited. And until today, we do not have a Kenyan election that has been audited. Most of the Kenyan elections are swept under the rugs, and we are made to believe elections have gone in a particular way. And that led to a coalition government after the post-election violence. And of course, the Ruto and Uhuru going to Hague. In 2013, we had the Uhuru and Ruto ticket. Another election that has never been audited. When I say this, we cannot authentically say that this particular individual won an election in Kenya, because there is no election in Kenya from 2007 where we've had servers opened. I will pull this quickly to 2022, the last election. But just to mention on 2013 election, where we had Akombe resigning, we had them Sando Day, we had a lot of things that happened in that election. But Kenyans, we just want to move on quickly and settle down. But all in these elections, it's not a people's election. In 2013, coming down, our elections have been manipulated externally in a big way. Manipulated, it's a long process. It starts from the funding of IEBC. It starts from monitoring the country a couple of years before the election. Programs, they call them civic funded, but these are small ways of programming Kenyan elections. And we pull it all the way to 2022, and people have been asking me, Mary, how do you know? I have been in this field as an observer, studying a lot and following the money. Most of the money that comes from the development partners, UNDP, it's money that is meant to sway the directions of this Kenyan election. And even to be brief and to go to exactly in the 2022 election. So the Azimio team went to Chatham House, but what the measures is, of course, the European Union, the Western world is taking care of their interests. But that's not what happens. That's where they're doing an interview of who is going to be the president of what country. And now speaking about Kenya. And they buy these people on how easily they can manipulate them and buy them in their history. And unfortunately, the Azimio team has not been very lucky in being the anointed people. So these are the team which is easily manipulated, which can carry an agenda. The Western agenda in Kenya was anointed for this election. So elections in Kenya start from the very end. They know who they want. They start working backwards. And the media plays a role in this. Propaganda plays a role in this, because narratives are set and then you work backwards to the people. One of the elections, these 2022 elections, and I don't know if one day we will ever be able to audit a Kenyan election, because what we get as leadership in this country is not what Kenyans elected. I will shock you by telling you high-level campaign secretariats know where the government is headed to. You must have had, like I come from Mount Kenya. In Mount Kenya, we used Jubilee Party. And members of parliament that are vying, utasikia wakisema serikali inaenda pande gani. It's not everyone who has this information. And for you get the ticket of the side where the government is going. Usually, it is not who is popular, it is who has been anointed to be the leader. That's why everyone was scampering for a UDA ticket. All the people, they just jumped to this other side and got tickets, actually bought tickets. They just buy these tickets to secure getting another term in parliament. And what I would say, if you study the Cherera for what they were talking about, the results of 2022, but because it is highly charged, people don't listen to the details. But for example, Kiambu County had an excess of 500,000 votes on one candidate. But people say, you know, these things are very small. They're not going to sway an entire election. Let's not look at them. But those things could sway a whole election. No one has ever looked keenly or talked about Smartmatic and how Kenyan data is diverted and changed, or a logarithm is set to change or sway the data. That is what happens in election. This is not local. This is not something done locally. It is an international manipulation of a Kenyan election. Someone needs to write a document about how we've lost our sovereignty. That's why when our president was sworn into office, he has done everything that's a foreign policy. It's not a Kenyan policy. In the Kibaki administration, we had public participation about GMO. Documents sit in parliament, but what did Ruto do? Immediately he came in, he lifted the ban on GMO. No public participation, nothing discussed in parliament, and GMOs. Every single loan that is coming to Kenya right now through IMF and World Bank has a social economic agenda attached to it. We give you this loan, you pass this bill, you pass this bill. That's why right now the agriculture bill has been passed. Right now, it's a criminal activity to carry out agricultural activities unless you have a diploma in agriculture. Otherwise, you face a jail term or a bail. If anyone is willing, lawyers listening to this, please audit every single bill that has been passed in the Kenyan parliament. It's a foreign agenda. It's not a Kenyan agenda. Social economic structures, like on the 24th of July, there's a case, there are Kenyan agriculturists who have come together who are suing because it's now criminal to share seeds in Kenya. These are legislations that have gone through the parliament. That's why I would say this is the worst government I've ever seen as a Kenyan, because no one cares about the bills they have parliament. Why is our president jumping as high as the foreign masters want him to jump? Because they played a big role in his presidency. He has no stance to fight for the Kenyan people. That's why he was the best candidate for them. And if anyone feels like my sentiments are not true, tell me one single thing he has done that is good for the Kenyan people. Even this finance bill is all a social economic structure attached to IMF funding. When you study all these things that have happened in this country, you realize the foreign hand in the Kenyan democracy, it is so huge. And I will shock you when I tell you, even on the opposition side, a high level, they always know where the presidency is going. I will shock you to tell you, even Raila knew, let me do this thing to maintain my backyard, to maintain the control of half of the country. He has a big following. To control Azimio, to have a big number members of parliament in parliament, but he knew he's not going to ascend to presidency because he sort of lost the willingness to keep fighting because it's a big monster to. When the election is done, he'll quickly be meeting the ambassador EU commissioners because the players that be have to manipulate both sides. That's why even now, his AU seat is really attached to these foreign bodies. They just want to balance an equilibrium in Kenya because we are the products in the market. We are slaves. They're squeezing every little life out of us as they manipulate a sitting government and manipulate an opposition. And as we sit here, discussions are underway of building a government of sort of national unity. I don't know if they're going to call it coalition. And they think that is going to quell the cry of Kenyans right now. They just want a working situation to continue pushing their social economic agendas, which are not Kenyan, which are not for the good of any Kenyan. And you will see they are going to have cabinet positions next week, and you will see what these people are doing. They are working together. If they were not working together, none of these players is coming out clearly and listening to what Kenyans are saying. Because what Kenyans are saying, this government is not fighting for us. Even on the smallest level, this government is not fighting for Kenyans. For the people that can study and do this, if you study the Venezuelan hand in the Kenyan government, it was huge. The foreigners played a big role in diverting the will of the people. And I will tell you again and again, what you see today is not what Kenyans voted. Thank you, Eric, for your time.
Oh, what do you mean?
My Lord, I wonder. I wonder.
What I'm going to teach you in.
So, speak on like this.
Okay, thank you, Rick. To bring in Ms. Oka into the broadcast, so kindly you can proceed.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me? This is an important subject because it's dealing with economic pain. Economic pain is actually the whole purpose of any government. And unfortunately for ourselves, right, the government is not being held accountable. When the frames of the 2010 Constitution put it together, under Article 4, which declared Kenya to be a republic, there was the provision that Kenya is a sovereign republic under Part 1, but under Part 2, the Republic of Kenya shall be a multi-party democratic state founded on national values and the principles of government that follow Article 10. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because the only way in which a democratic republic can function is when the government of the day is held to account by the people of the country. Hello? Am I being heard?
Yes. Go on. We can hear you.
And I want to bring this alarm because Jimmy Wanjigi was speaking competently about what the executives have been doing wrong. I was talking about the need for us, the people, to hold that government to account. But the only reason that we are being asked to hold the government to account is because of the failure, complete failure of the opposition. And therefore, we cannot have any discussion about progressing Kenya with only Ruto must go. There must include the removal of this parliament and this Senate. Because the President Ruto, when he came into office, his first act was to buy political parties. All of you saw how quickly he moved to do that. And where he could not buy the parties, he bought individual members of parliament. Under our constitution, which is modeled under the Westminster model, the opposition is meant to be an official opposition with equal power to a government so that they can oppose the government of the day in order that the people can get a better government. And the public finances in the consolidated fund are meant to fund that opposition equally as they fund it and as they fund the presidency, so that at any point the country is having a mirror. Our country is having a due view, due highway as to what is happening in the country. And since we allowed Ruto to raid the opposition benches and to actually assume the majority leader, when actually Azimio won the majority of members in parliament, then nobody is holding Ruto to account. Traditionally, the watchdogs in parliament, the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, the Public Investment Committee are chaired by the opposition. And the constitution under the Westminster model envisage that a government cannot police itself. It must be policed by the opposition. And the Attorney General and the Auditor General, all the heads of any corporation or ministry are required to go to either committee the same way they would have to go if the president was to summon them. And these are the reports, for example, that came during the Goldenberg scandal, during the Moi time, during the scandal, and so forth. But now what you have to control the executive, and therefore their ability. And the citizens, as Jimmy is saying, we need to educate people, but the level at which we are educating the people means they don't have the access to government records. And unless Jimmy had put the kind of money he did to get the forensic audit, it was not possible. Yet the Constitution provides that we, the people, fund the opposition and have access to government records, have got access to everything so that they can give us this information. So as a people, we should never have reached this position if Parliament, if the opposition was doing its work. Why do I raise this issue? I raise this issue because the Jay-Z revolution of 2024 is very different from the revolutions we had run before against Moi and against the celebration, let's say. And the reason it is different, they started with the no finance bill by occupying parliament and naming the MPs, tukaende tukasalimie hawa ma MPs. Then what happened is there was equal fear on government MPs as their opposition MPs. And it was the panic of those members of parliament because of this revolution strategy that tilted Ruto to say he will not sign the finance bill is because MPs went to him and told him we are finished. If we do this, we are gone, and these people will throw us out. I want to say that I think if we look at the way forward, we must of all right now start being very, very critical of the people we are calling our hero of yesterday. My friend Raila Odinga, who Jimmy and I know well, I want to warn him in forum, and I want to tell him openly, if you become the man that goes to save Zakayo, you will not only be abdicating your responsibility as an opposition leader, but you will be killing the democratic state that was envisaged by founding fathers. And this will be a legacy even Jaramogi will not forgive you for. Because the whole idea of fighting for Section 2A under the Moi regime was that we have a multi-party state where opposition parties would hold the government of the day to account. This way we are proceeding is making our citizens go and elect us in elections, which is their duty, and then tell them to manage the executive, to hold it to account, and to remove it when they have also elected opposition MPs to do that on their behalf. So I wanted today to change this conversation to say that as we go to the streets from the 16th of this month, we go with two pieces of agenda. That even if Ruto was to go home, but we elect this kind of MPs, we are going to go nowhere. I want to give two examples. The MP for Cilicia, John Waluke, was convicted by a competent court of his peers to 67 years in jail for stealing R1 billion shillings from the National Cereal and Produce Board. Waluke was told in the alternative of his death sentence, he will have to pay back the R1 billion shillings. Not only was Waluke released on an appeal, he participated in an election, was re-elected to parliament against Chapter 10 of the Leadership Act, but he's still an MP, was elected under opposition ticket, but now is working with William Ruto. So what are the Kenyan people being treated to? We are being treated to musical chairs of these people who have been corrupted in the system. So it doesn't matter if they're in the opposition or the government, they are all in one boat. And this is why we must sound this alarm. Because if the MCAs in Eldoret or where that young lady was coming from, I could hear her pain of this Finland money. If all the MCAs of the opposition had taken her clarion call, I can tell you that money would have been paid back by the county. But because the executive is not doing it and the opposition is not doing it, this young girl becomes the advocate of the grandfathers and grandmothers of that area of Kenya. So today I want to say this, and I really hope that Raila Odinga's friends are on this line. Because before this, the only critic of Raila Odinga was Meguna. And I found sometimes he could be excessive in his language. But I want to tell Odinga, after working with him for Kenya is at crossroads. And this particular time, I know having resistance from other leaders of Azimio who are not boarding on this idea of a cabinet reshuffle or an idea of some kind of dialogue. I want to this country why the court rejected BBI. BBI was rejected by 5 judges of the High Court because they said that this was driven by the president and Raila Odinga. It was not driven by the public. It was not people driven. And because it was not people driven, the judges, Judge Ogunda, Judge Ngugi, Judge Nyaga, and Matheka, and all of them said that the only way to alter the constitution is to involve the people and get them to begin their agenda. Now, when you say you're going to have a dialogue and you're calling it a public dialogue, but you're not involving the people, you are saying it as well. You are going to do what again to do to BBI. Because the people who are marching and who started this agenda asked you to stay at home. Why are you leaving the house? Stay where they asked you to stay. If they want dialogue, they will ask for it. If they want to talk to, they'll ask for it. Why are you intervening in a constitutional moment where the people are only acting because the opposition is not acting? So as Jimmy is saying, if these matters had just or had more people giving Jimmy some space, if there were more leaders in the opposition, if there were more people adding voice and adding firewood to this fire, this issue of economic rape and economic destruction of Kenya would have reached all of us sooner before we get, from the frying pan to the fire. Why am I raising these things? I'm raising these things because I was a press officer or head of ODM in 2007 and working for Raila Odinga. And that time, I remember that when there was post-election violence in Kenya, Anyang' Nyong'o, who was Secretary General of ODM, wrote a letter to The Hague, to the prosecutor, and said, as ODM, we would like to bring information of crimes against humanity that were done in this country. And they named William Ruto as one of the offenders, according to the violations that could amount to human rights. And following the letter of ODM, William Ruto was charged with 3 crimes of forcible eviction of population and so forth under the Charter of Human Rights. And the same Raila today is telling us that this thing he saw on the streets where 41 people were killed, when he was leading demonstrations, 70-somebody people were killed, he's okay with it now that he can talk to Ruto for some dialogue to form some government of national unity. Then I have a duty to call out who was my former friend and say, as much as we are fighting Ruto, we must fight you. Because if you are going to take the country back every time we move forward, this generation cannot inherit our mistakes because we need to continue to be the monsters. We go forward and deals are made from IPPG, a settlement, political settlement. We go back government of national unity. We go back, we go back from the day we went to NATCO. What one thing has been implemented in NATCO? People told me the other day, electoral commission. Who will appoint those people who will go to appoint commissioners? It will be a meeting between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. And if Odinga remains compromised as he is, how do you think we'll have a people's electoral commission? And that is why this nation, this country at this time, must do everything possible to constitute a public constituent, form a transitional authority and take power. And I want to say, if we do not do that, then these generations and those people who died will repeat the mistakes of their fathers. We are going to go back to a talking shop. We are going to go back to political settlements. Raila will be the chairman of the African Union. His daughter will be the head of somewhere in Yala, and Kalonzo and whoever else will be where. I just want you and this country to understand the dangers we are in. The dangers that we have are not tied to the executive. They are tied to abuse of the 2010 Constitution. As I finalize, I wanted to say that under the 2010 Constitution, Chapter 4 gave the Bill of Rights. And that Bill of Rights, read together with Chapter 1, where the sovereignty is with the people, was put in Bomas of Kenya by very senior people like Yash Gai for a reason, because they foresaw a situation where the government and the opposition betray the people. So in the 2010 Constitution, and Kenya has one of the most advanced constitutions in the world, they put the Bill of Rights, where the sovereignty ran with the people. And to change that constitution, the executive could not manipulate the opposition to change it. And why the BBI was defeated by the High Court is they said if the executive conspires with the opposition to change the constitution, then the public will be have no defense. And this is a preserve only for the people of Kenya. And therefore, I would like to encourage. I want to thank Eric for this opportunity. I didn't want to get deep into the economics because I thought speakers before me have got very clear issues on the public debt and where it is and the problems that we have. And of course, that it's really impossible to solve this problem without either a default or a forgiveness of debt. It is just not possible. So my parting comment is that, ambition without knowledge is like a ship on land. And we may be happy saying Ruto must go, but I fear that if we don't change, not just the people who are in parliament, but the way we vote to a tribeless, active, informed election throughout the country, if we do not reduce the cost of leaders, we have 47 counties when we could have 7. We have a woman leader or woman representative who does nothing. She has no duty in the county, paid by the public. We've got so many parliamentarians, I don't know how many hundreds, when we could have just 100. We have a bloated system because we said, oh, if we decentralize the resources, governors will be okay. Now we've got 14 centers of corruption. Nairobi County should be a ministry in the government of Kenya because of its enormity. And because it is late in the day and I know things to say, I had to contribute into this conversation that maybe we should have a bird's eye view, a deeper assessment on protecting the democratic state. And it cannot be protected by the executive alone, it must be protected outside the executive as well.
Thank you very much. I'm waiting for my young siblings to come. Where is Kiduze? Kiduze. Is he there? Kiduze Chwani.
Hello?
Chwani? Yes. Yes.
Go
on. Please go on. Chwani?
Eric, I'm not sure we have him on the call.
Yeah, he's there. He's there. I'm waiting for him. I've seen him here. Please, can you start, please? You are time. On.
Hello.
Go on, please. Yeah, he's wasting our time.
Thank you very much, Master Americ, for giving me this chance to talk just a little bit. I'm not going to talk much, but whatever I'm going to say, you really need to be keen on what I'm going to say. So here's the thing. As I've received the information that as from today, there was a meeting. There has been a meeting, and what the meeting was about is basically Raila Odinga trying to come again and pretend that he's one of us. He's trying to come and kingpin him as people love Raila. We used to love him, but now his plan is to come. He pretends ajifanya kona sisi, but then when we now embrace him, he now goes and sells us to the Sugoi merchant once again. What I'm just trying to say is do not accept that. We must remain leaderless. We must remain focused on our goal. And if in any case anything happens, we must not our leader out there to attack. And also another thing, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but at some point I feel like Sugoi's recklessness and Tamayake, it has really opened us our eyes to discover more things. Things like mining. I've been working on that area for a very jana juzi na juzi ingine. I've been working on that, and I came to realize there's a lot of shit happening in Kenya that most people are not even aware of. Hata zile jet mnaona huyu jamaa ati alienda huko anasema alitumwa na mabesti zake. Kumbe huyu jamaa alienda kutuza huko bana. So I'm not going to talk about that pretty much. I'm planning to kuna files bado na kusanya hapa na pale before I give you
Yes.
a full dosage of what is actually happening. Because
Yes.
I've come to understand even there's a part of where the Pandora Papers, this whole thing is like a food web, a very big web that is interconnected. Easy conservancies, our nini, a lot of dark things that are happening at the expense of Kenyans are really happening. Are really happening. New Maya tent.
Okay.
So we must our goal at March. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to talk much. Maybe there are other people who want to say something more important. But my goal was if Raila is trying to integrate our movement, we must not allow him.
Okay.
He's a sellout.
All right.
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much. There was Mercy here who talked a lot about fertilizer and and I've had Tony talk about the wasted us. I'm not giving a chance to politicians to speak, but there is this politician who voted no. I think it's the only one from Bungoma County. He should tell us why he voted no and why his other colleagues voted yes. He should tell us. Jack Wanami, Bumula. How are you, sir?
Nzuri sana bwana.
Yes. Go on. We give you 4 minutes.
Thank you for inviting me to this space. I'm Nami Wamboka, Member of Parliament, Bumula constituency. Voted on DP ticket Azimio, and of course I voted no for council for reasons that are clear. That one, William Ruto is taking this country in a different direction. I was a sponsor of the Linturi Oster motion because I believed, and I still believe, Linturi needs to be in jail. Now, listen, Kenyans, you have a minister, first, who brings in contaminated sugar, which has gone to affect Kenyans. And by the way, you may not realize today, a lot of Kenyans are going to suffer from cancer cases because of the contaminated sugar that got its way to the market of Kenya because we had a minister called Mithika Linturi. And Kenyans move on as if nothing happened. Then this guy brings in fertilizer contaminated. He moves and because of his issues, he goes and gives a company called MEMS Distribution Company, of course, belonging to his former brother-in-law, which has never been involved in distribution, manufacturing, or fertilizer in any way. So that MEMS proceeds now to look for real manufacturers and distributors of fertilizer in the name of KELS. These guys ordinarily just fraudulently give Kenyans bad fertilizer. Can you hear me, Eric? Hello? Eric, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You see, the guy oversteps the constitution, decides to deal with the National Cereals Board, who does not have the mandate to deal, distribute, manufacture, package, and everything about fertilizer. So when the thing came up in public, of course, Mithika Linturi was a crook. He's a fraudster. I looked around, chairman of the committee, education and governance. So we oversight. One of my roles is to oversight. So I decided to put in a petition, a motion to remove Mithika Linturi. And by the way, we successfully impeached Mithika Linturi. 149 against 30. Those members that day who wanted to vote virtually, and the list could have been even longer. They form a committee now to look at the merits of the motion. I was at that time
All right. I think we completely lost him. Let me Eden, and then stay here in Mahanu. I want more of these Gen Zs. Where are they? These 24, 23, 22-year-olds. I want you here. I want you to speak. This is your generation, your movement. Stay hidden. Stay hidden.
Am I audible?
Yeah, please go on. Please go on.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Am I audible? Okay. Okay, sawa. So on my aspect, nitaongelea story ya how we can solve where the problems we are having right now, and I'll keep it short. According to mwenye tumeambiwa hapo na Wanjiwi, we can see from the previous audit tumepata tuko na 3 trillion, lakini the government ilienda kuchukua loan ya 7.7 trillion. That means hakuna mtu akitaka kukuibia. For example, nikitaka kwenda kuiba, siwezi enda kuiba kwa ghettos, itabidi nimeenda kuiba. Kama nataka kuiba billions, nitaenda kuiba kwa banks zenye ziko huko Westlands and posh places, place niko sure nitatoka hapo na pesa mzuri. That's what the government is doing. The government inaweka pesa, inatuwekea pesa kwa mfuko ndio ituibie, kwa sababu the deficit was there, it was kidogo, na wangejaribu kuiba, some development projects hazingeendelea na pia mishahara ingelipwa. So through balance audit inaonyesha tu simply the government ilienda kuborrow excess 7.7 trillion more than 1.3 trillion. Kwa sababu gani? Kwa sababu inataka iwekee pesa kwa mfuko iwaibie. And through those kenye Wanjigi amewaelezea, ukiangalia through just the year in 2014 the government had already initiated plans so that in those plans walikuwa washa claim an ODS debt of 0.7 trillion, na hiyo unaangalia ni the Eurobond of 2014 peke yake. Ukiangalia Eurobond of 2014 peke yake na the SGR deal, ukichanya hizo zote mbili, zote zina up to almost 0.7 trillion. And how can we curb these loopholes? If you want to get more details about how the Eurobond, niko na thread na nimeweka hapo kwa chats, utaangalia there is a thread about public debt scrutiny yenye inaongelea kuhusu Eurobond, na kuna thread nyingine ambayo inaongelea SGR. You can see from those threads there. So on another thing that we'll need to curb loopholes pia ni corruption. Corruption through.
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible, but you need to go straight.
Yeah.
To
So
the point.
in corruption, there's threat about corruption, especially on budgeted corruption. In this sense, Wanjigi ashatuelezea more about public debt wherever we are penye tuko. I'll give an example of budgeted corruption yenye happen. I have another thread on budgeted corruption about national government. But let's see the example of roads project. For example, in 2013 to 2017, the Jubilee government increased roads by 5,800 kilometers during that period. Now, during that period, it spent 614 billion on roads. That was 60% more than the Kibaki government yenye ilikuwa imetumia 376 billion. Ukikuja, the average cost per kilometer the Jubilee government used was 96 million per kilometer. But ukiangalia what the other government used, previous government used was 51 million per kilometer. That's a very big margin and increase. Na hiyo margin inaonekana kuincrease hapo. Ukikuja 5 years later, utapata 9 roads zenye zilijengwa zilikuwa zinatumia 300 million per kilometer. And these roads accounted for 20% of the portfolio roads that were built during that period. Na only 3% by volume. Notable roads zenye zilijengwa na hiyo amount ni hiyo Jamasara to Kisumu Airport na Mombasa Southeastern Bypass. Especially the Mombasa Southeastern Bypass was built by 1,155 per kilometer. Na the previous government ilikuwa imebuild na per kilometer utapata hapo ni 30 million per something of that sort. So the government inaweka projects at a higher cost so that so long as hii kitu inaenda itapitishwa kwa appropriations bill, hakuna kitu tunaweza fanya government not to steal. So in my own view, what I think is, but you can go, niko na thread about budgeted corruption, you can check on those details mko kwa chat, na kuna another thread on budgeted corruption on electricity, iko na more details on how the government ina make sure inatumia loophole, should I say a loophole, ama ina abuse whatever, so long as washa budget kwa appropriations bill,
Okay.
whatever they steal from there ni wa.
Right.
So what are the solutions that we can stop things? In my case, as conversing with other Gen Z, we realize that we can't trust the government right now. At the same sense, we can't even trust the judicial system. Government bado inalipa the judicial system. So regardless of the president or the regime in place, watakuwa wanalipa judicial system. Na ukiangalia hata certain mimi kinatembea after 2000 cases, only 20 cases, less than 20 cases ndio zimekuwa prosecuted na zikakuwa go through. Na that's a very that's a massive failure rate. So as Gen Z, we can never trust this judicial, we can never trust EACC, na pia tuwezi trust the wabunge. For example, during this current financial year, the parliament have only 313 to come from external loans, but ukiangalia kwa budget yenye wamepitisha kwa appropriations bill pale, wanasema aje, wanataka external loans ikuwe almost 850 somewhere. Maximum imeongezeka ya almost 500. Hiyo yote nothing it happened. Ukiangalia 2013 to 2022, I mean 2013 to 2022, yeah, Uhuru did the same thing. Amekuwa approved 4 trillion and end up borrow 7.7 trillion. Loophole they'll continue to use, and if set up policies that are inscribed in the constitution, hawataacha regardless of the president or the regime in place or the members of parliament in place. So in my own view, I think we can have a Bitcoin, a blockchain system. A blockchain system, let me break it down simply so that people can understand how can a blockchain system help us. For example, let's assume umekuja kununua nyumba, let's say umekuja town, no, ama you Thika Road and you're looking for a house, na umepata Roysambu, I'm there, umenipata mimi ndio nauza nyumba. I give you a folder. In that folder, wiki open page 1, unaona 2001 this house was built. Next folder unaona 2002 kulikuwa na renovation ya mabati and what not. 2003, but ukiangalia nyumba unaona hii nyumba bricks ama mawe zile zilikuwa zinatumika na wazungu, the British by that then. Hauwezi trust my folder. So blockchain simply is what can I say? Is simply a diary in this sense. Kama nauza hii nyumba, so nyumba zote zenye ziko hapa tunaweka na diary, na sio mimi peke yake. It's a distributed ledger in that mimi na watu wote wanaishi kwa hii kijiji tuko na hii diary, na any renovation I make kwa hii nyumba na keep kwa hii diary. So mtu mwenye anakuja kununua hii nyumba akiangalia diary yangu anaenda kuconfirm with another diaries from other people. That's what blockchain does. Inakuwa distributed ledger very many people. In case my diary has information that other diaries zenye zimerecord all those transactions haiko hapo, that means my diary iko compromised. So my diary itatupwa kwa system, itatupwa kwa hiyo chain. Zile blockchain zenye zina diary zina entries zenye zinafanana, they'll still remain in the empty chain. So in short, how can blockchain help us? For once,
Wind up,
hata
please.
kama President Ruto amefukuza the cabinet secretaries, we as Gen Z, we don't trust that ati Ruto atakuja back point a cabinet secretary based on competence. Tuko sure point bado on that. But for example, through blockchain voting, tunaweza amua kukuwe na certain threshold ya watu fulani kwa kila county ama kila constituency wapige kura through blockchain voting so that to approve hiyo CS, si wananchi tugeuze power ikuwe power we bring back power to us as citizen, so that sisi citizen tupige kura through blockchain voting. Haitaitisha pesa mingi ya IBC ku hold elections. It's just a blockchain voting. So long as uko na phone ama laptop, utapigia, tuta approve that CS. Another thing, loan approval. Tunafaa tukuwe na blockchain voting. For example, kwenye nilikuwa nimesema kama Ruto kwa ameapproviwa na government only 313 loans. Kama alikuwa ameapprove only 313 billion na anaenda hapa kwa budget anasema anataka 807 billion. Hiyo ingine 5 extra. But kukiwa na blockchain voting tuta make sure so long as kuna loan the Kenyan government, kama utaenda ni shauri yako hiyo depa, na kwa constitution tushaweka kutakuwa na blockchain voting yenye kama president yoyote mwenye yuko in place, si wa leo ama wa kesho, tutavote kama hiyo wananchi wana approve hiyo deni, sawa, atapewa. Kama wananchi hawa approve hiyo deni, hatapewa. Another thing yenye tunafaa tuvotie on through that blockchain voting, loan usage. Hiyo loan itumike wapi?
Okay, thank you. Thank
you very much. Let us go to the next. Did you finish, Jack? Did you get your internet? Did Jack get his internet back? Jack, did you get your internet back? As we wait for Jack to finish what he was saying, where is Chwani? Where is Chwani? He's nowhere to be found. He's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Mahanu, yeah. Mahanu can go on.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can go on.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Mahanu. I am I'm an advocate of the High. I practice here in Nairobi for over 10 years now. I have been working in my own small way to try and dismantle these cartels that are tearing down our country. I've been doing my bit, especially on issues that concern us, because I'm one of the service providers there. In fact, on the 22nd of this month, we have a huge case that involves the chairman and some part of the management that are demanding a bribe of 15 million from me before approved payment of the service that we rendered. A while ago, I saw the story being shared on Twitter, and I'd like to invite all Kenyans from all walks of life to keep on monitoring this. So the issue that concerns what we're discussing about, I'm going to talk about 3 issues. Number one, the Finland scandal. I've heard about the cries that the lady from Wasingishu is talking about. I understand that there is a criminal case that is going on, but we all need to understand that a criminal case will never lead to refund of that money. The most that is likely to happen is that those people that were involved, as well as the county government, are going to be found guilty, convicted, or probably ordered to pay a fine. But still, the money that was lost it is highly unlikely that the money is going to be refunded. So what needs to be done, because Eric and the viewers are asking that the real action that needs to be done at this moment is we need to put our heads together and file a recovery suit against the county government of Wasingishu, as well as Senator Mandago and all those scoundrels that were involved in this heist. So that is point number one. I'm also going to talk about, and perhaps we can get in touch with Eric Cyprian so that we can put up a legal team. I am willing to be part and parcel of that legal team. I can see my senior is here, and we can work through on this issue so that we can help those people that have suffered in this issue. Number two, I'm going to the public debt to pick it up from where Jimmy left. The state is so deplorable that we need to action this. What we need to understand is that all judicial authority in our country belongs to the people. And the same way these have come up and they have forced the withdrawal of the finance bill, The people in this country can also come up and demand that the judiciary must exercise the judicial authority in a manner that is in line with the Constitution. I believe that systems are always designed to deliver results. So when you see a system like the judiciary deliver results, that means someone is tampering with the system to make it work that way on selfish gains. So we need to start demanding that the judiciary must rise up to the occasion and conclude these cases. In order to assess this issue of the public debt, I suggest that we need also to put up our heads together and perhaps file a composite suit, because the Constitution allows us to seek declaratory orders, to seek stay orders, to such an extent that we put to halt the payment of this debt to allow for a forensic audit, so that we can really understand how did we get ourselves to this point?
Okay,
How did
so
this?
just on, you said it is possible to put a suit as
Yes,
as citizens. We can
yes,
fundraise and fundraise and
ab-
put a suit.
ab- absolutely, Eric. Under
Mhm.
the Constitution, Article 23,
Yes.
Kenyans can put up a petition and file it in the High Court and seek declaratory orders of any nature. Declaratory orders in the nature that this public debt has become a public problem and we need a forensic order, a forensic audit. Stay orders can be granted. And I have also heard Jimmy saying that there are lawyers who are doing pro bono cases in foreign jurisdictions. We have what we call in law we have something called extradition proceedings. We can get orders in our courts and register in those countries that concerns these fellows who have put up these debts against us, for purposes of also getting stay orders from those countries. So this legal process is a very strong weapon that we can use at this particular moment. And I can tell you, we can get stay orders at this point. Remember, the issue of the public debt arises from the law of contract. And under the law of contract, we have several doctrines that can assist us in the circumstances. We have the doctrine of privity of contract, which provides clearly that if you are not part and parcel of a contract or a liability that is arising from a contract, then you are not liable to pay for it. In a setup, before a government can, they need to get authority and consent from the citizens. Now, citizens need two governments to borrow money through parliamentary approval. Just like in a situation of a company, before before the directors and shareholders can act on behalf of a company, they must get authority from the company shareholders under seal. So similarly, even in a country, before a government can borrow, it must demonstrate that it got approval from the citizens. So we citizens can invoke the doctrine of privity to contract, and on that basis get orders to halt the payment of this public debt pending a forensic audit to ascertain exactly what happened. Of course, the other doctrine that will help us is the doctrine of ex tupi, whereby if an act arises from an illegality, there is no way, if you are part and parcel of that legality, you may want to benefit from it. So IMF, the Paris group, the London group, the Chinese, and the Eurobond, how it's being manipulated, cannot purport to benefit from this illegality if for sure it has been demonstrated that the manner in which these debts came to be is is not according to what is contemplated in our laws. And almost as I conclude, the doctrine of estoppel can also come in and assist us in prosecuting this case. So, as we think about the way forward, we need, of course, as citizens, to start asking questions about disclosure of the contracts that get to these debts. And through this forum, we can get this information. So all the professionals, or everyone that is in this forum that is concerned, needs to start doing their bit so that we can get this information. Let us start, Eric, the next session we are having, let's status update of the matters that progress insofar as this debt is concerned. Professionals, lawyers, accountants, auditors, so that we start compiling materials for purposes of getting these court orders. So that is what we need to do.
Nzima kuchapa kazi jioni ikifika mtu. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
As I conclude on the issue of the status of the revolution, 2 minutes, 1 minute, Eric.
Yes.
As we continue champion on this issue of our revolution, we need to identify short-term and long-term goals. Short-term goals, as the president gears up towards appointing a new cabinet, we need to continue demanding that so many heads need to roll. We need to revamp our state corporations. We need to ensure that these people who are currently serving as state corporation heads, the CEOs, the board members, and the chairman, these people need to go. We need to have an overhaul. We need to start afresh. And as new people are brought into office, the first thing is we need to make public service, we need to decommercialize public service. We need to put up demands to the extent that if you're coming to serve members of the public, you will be paid according to your job group, based on your credentials. If you're an MP, if you are a cabinet secretary, if you are a CEO of a state corporation, if you are a chairman, if you are a board member, you should be paid your remuneration based on your job group. And job groups are defined by your level of education. That is the only way we are going to decommercialize public service. And as we demand a dissolution of parliament, when new MPs mean, we should also demand that they should be paid according to their level of education. Job groups, let us have a scenario where if we have an MP who has not gone to university or doesn't have any certificate, you should be paid just like a janitor. So that you can, if you want more salary, you should go back to school. That is the only way we will be able to motivate this thing, and slowly by slowly, we will get people who want to serve Kenyans. Thank you so much, Eric. And let's keep on engaging.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. As I hand over to Jack, the young man called Chwani to tell us something. Can he tell us what he wants to tell us? Chwani? Chwani, can you start? Can you start, please? Chwani, can you start?
Hello.
Can you go on, Chwani? This is the last chance I'm giving you.
Hello, Nyandi. Can I speak?
All right, consider that chance gone. Let me talk to Jack. Jack, you were saying something about fertilizer and the contaminated sugar and the cancer that we're going to experience in the next many years. What is this? Jack?
Experience in the next many years. Yes, Eric, thank you so much.
Yeah, go on. I hope you've gotten your internet. We want to finish this very fast to give others an opportunity. You are talking
Yes,
about fertilizer and the contaminated sugar that Kenyans are taking. Kenya, you are taking contaminated sugar. You are facing years and years of cancer.
That is true, Eric. Mithika Linturi brought in contaminated sugar, and it's like life is moving on as usual. We are having. Hello, can you hear me, Eric?
Yeah, it is the problem, but go on.
We are going, very sorry we lost the people like Keuna, And in the near future, we are going to have a disaster because of the contaminated sugar that came in under Mythical Inturi, went to the market, and the president is laughing about it. Everything is normal. Life is going on in Kenya as usual. That one aside, we have a fertilizer scandal. A minister brings in fertilizer, and fertilizer that is not fertilizer, that is mixed with maram and cow dung. At the end of the day, the net effect is that the production, the food we are going to harvest this time, at home, you have a cob of maize that has hardly less than 10 maize tablets on it. I realize this. I'm also chairman of the Public Investments Committee, Education and Governance. My audit government is to put government into proper checks and balances. Also pay, because I come from a farming. Bomola is a farming region and largely Western Kenya. I prosecuted
Hello, Cyprian. Are you able to get him?
I can't get him.
Can you hear me?
Eric,
Your internet is the problem, sir.
Eric, can I have 2 minutes?
Let him finish.
As I finish, Eric, Mythical must be prosecuted for the crimes he's had against the Kenyan people. And the
How are you
Kenyans
planning to
must,
do that, sir?
there is a case in court already by Law Society of Kenya, Law Society of Kenya, where we are enjoined, and it's coming up that he blatantly went against the constitution. Yes, we have a case, Kenyans have a case against him, and we must prosecute Mythical Inturi, and we must move it to the logical conclusion. As I support the Gen Z for what they have done up to now, I want to vehemently oppose an idea that is coming up of dialogue. An idea, you see, what the polling has not achieved for so long because of mixed interests, this generation has done it in less than weeks. Yesterday, I was with Raila Odinga, my party leader in Azimio. I was with Kalonzo Musyoka and all the Azimio brigade, and I told them, don't interfere with these young people. Let them finish that which they started. We cannot dialogue with William Ruto when now we are getting bodies, young people whose only problem and mistake was to go on streets and voice what
Yes,
Eric?
yes. Go on. We still hear you.
Can I speak now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I want to be very quick. Now, just to tell you why I was saying people like William Ruto cannot solve this problem, I want to express the illegality that has done over the last 1 year in his first budget. The development budget in the appropriations bill said that they are going to borrow foreign external loans of 313 billion shillings. 313 billion shillings. Those are the only loans that have been approved on the budget of Kenya. and those have gone to development as per our laws. They are even listed what they are going for. In the last 1 year that ended June 30th, his first budget, he ended up borrowing 1.6
We can hear you. Go on.
And I repeat, they are in a conspiracy of a Ponzi scheme. And I again repeat, KCB, Co Bank, who are not involved in this malfeasance, and there are many others, get into those banks and deposit. These banks are part of our slavery and they must be cut off, completely cut off. And I want to say, in addition to this, that the only dialogue we should be talking about with William Samoei Ruto is a dialogue and no other. That is where we want to dialogue. And let me end with a famous quote I saw yesterday on on James Smart's Twitter handle. And it was from a famous president from Burkina Faso called Thomas Sankara. He said, if we don't pay the debt, the lenders will not die. But if we pay it, we will die. That is the situation in Kenya. If we continue paying this, we will die. We must stop our death.
So
Asante sana.
before you go, Jimmy, now can you give practical steps? Just tell us these are the practical steps that we need to embrace in order to avoid this odious debt. This is what we need to do. This is the next step. This is what we should do. This is what the citizen can do. And this is how we will stop the payment of this odious debt that we are not supposed to pay.
The only way, and I repeat, the only way is to remove this regime from power. And any person who has been part of this malfeasance, especially over the last 12 or so years, must be removed from any decision-making position. That is the only way. The kind of money we are talking about is so humongous, so humongous. You are not going to sort it. And I appreciate the legal aspect that you can go to court, you can do this. I'm telling you, you're talking about phenomenal amounts of 50, 60 billion dollars that have been looted from us. And I'm telling you, they will buy nearly every institution. You must remove this regime from power. You must get out. You must have a conversation with us at the ballot box before 2027. It is the only way. This is the only single way we are going to stop these bullets that are coming and killing our children. It must end. Our death must end. And it can only end with the perpetrators behind bars and them out of power.
All right. Before you, of course, you stay around so that you give us a parting shot. I'm looking for Nelson Amenya. He with the JKI Hist. I've tried looking for him, send him a link. Oh, he's here. Nelson, go on and tell us the JKIA Hist. What happened? Why was someone trying to lease or sell our airports? What was the reason? Why were they doing this? I'm sure you have the documents, you understand, because that is your area, you understand the nitty-gritties in that report and that proposal that you shared. Can you please tell us what happened?
Yes, thank you very much. We have had hitches and glitches here and there, but finally I'm here. So I just want to talk about this very shocking documents that I received, and they're being pushed from the highest offices, the ministry, State House, from KAA. So it's not as they can be able to trace them.